Nazis! Nazis, Nazis, Nazis! Once thought to be a relic of World War II, Nazis are back in a big way. Nowadays you can see these goose steppers everywhere, marching down the sidewalks of your city or standing in front of presidential podiums. Yes, the Nazis have made a comeback after more than half a century of correctly being mocked and shunned for their empty ideology. What's next? Renewed interest in the Charleston? Watch out, nightclubs, these flappers are bringing back the bad old days.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
A few weeks ago, in the midst of struggling through watching the news, a thought popped into my head. How many video games have Nazis in them? Probably a lot, right? So many video games take place during World War II and Nazis are easy cannon fodder. After thumbing through the internet search engine results and listicles, I landed on BloodRayne, a third-person action game starring a vampire named Rain that I had only previously heard about, never played, and vaguely knew about as one of those early 2000s dead intellectual properties. But much like vampires themselves, BloodRayne rose again with a remaster a few years ago that largely went unnoticed and received only the faintest of applause from its die-hard Nostalgia Glasses fanbase. How could a game about eating Nazis be bad? I endeavored to find out. Let's dive in. But before that, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and set the notification bell to all so that you never miss a video. Support me on Patreon, link in the description. Vampires are famous for three things: their supernatural weaknesses to sunlight, their insatiable thirst for blood, and guns. Vampires love guns! Every vampire from folklore and literature owned several firearms. Historically proven vampire Elizabeth Bathory was mysteriously in possession of a CZ Model 2325 submachine gun centuries before it entered production. Yet, the vampire gun combination was largely absent from video games until 2002 when developer Terminal Reality unveiled BloodRayne. And what an unveiling it was. Never before has a game felt so immediately derivative of other media, so slapdash and hack in its writing. Our protagonist is Rain, a half-vampire with fewer weaknesses who hunts other vampires, a la Blade, on a personal quest for justice, a la Angel, fights as if she were Trinity from The Matrix, and she works for a secret organization called the Brimstone Society. And take your pick. To maximize the juvenile vibe of BloodRayne, every aspect, feature, and character beat of the game was written in one of those Rorschach test notebooks popular in middle school. You can imagine some concept artist being like, yeah, and then her boobs just boob out. Point of order, BloodRayne cannot be derivative of Underworld because the latter was released a year later. Also, who would want to rip off Underworld? Also, BloodRayne is not derivative of True Blood despite taking place in Louisiana and having vampires, once again due to how time works. So what is this game even like? The game begins in the swamps of Louisiana. Rain is on her first mission for the Brimstone Society, investigate reports of zombies in the area, smash some heads, save the surviving townspeople, and take out the biomass nests scattered throughout the muck. Rain has twin swords that she attaches to her arms. They flip out and cut everyone to ribbons. These are admittedly very cool. These swords are her signature weapons, and I sure wish they looked like they were actually making contact with enemies when I have her cut them up. This is a pet peeve of mine. I know that in the era of Dark Souls, a weapon that basically waves through an enemy is the norm, forcing us to use our imaginations about what this would have looked like if the collision detection also had visible collision impact. The guns have more oomph to them. The bullets look like they are genuinely striking the enemies. They jerk around the way disposable movie characters do when they are gunned down. I'm also fond of the harpoon blood drinking. Press X and Rain fires a "get over here" chain and snacks on whoever is on the other end. Her health is replenished by this, much like in Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, one of my favorite games of all time. Rain needs to snack on Nazis. In Act 1, she needs to snack on zombies, but after that it's Nazis all the way through. What do Nazis even taste like? In vampire lore and fiction, there are always these little asides where a vampire says that virgin blood tastes sweeter or the blood of children is sublime. Do Nazis taste different from non-Nazis? Maybe a little acrid with a soapy aftertaste? Tell me in the comments what you think Nazis taste like. Sometimes Rain encounters survivors to rescue, and this one is my favorite. Teen Girl. That is how she is described in the game, not even a teen girl, but Teen Girl, like that's her surname, Dorothy Teen Girl. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that Teen Girl is named that way in the code of the game as a placeholder or a character design model name, and rather than naming her something different in the cutscene, the game references the only name it has available. I don't know how to code, but is there some other possible reason for this? The reason I think this is because later in the game one character is listed as Native 2, one word, which really feels like a developer note to themselves or a character model name, and not the name he should have had in the cutscene. In a dark choice for the game that I can appreciate, everyone who Rayne saves dies anyway. The monsters come for them in the hiding place that she told them would be safe. Teen girl, no! The boss of Louisiana is a gigantic version of the nests from before. After dispatching it, Rayne finally meets up with her first Nazi. Act 2 of BloodRayne begins in a hotel room. Rayne is speaking to her contact in the Brimstone Society, and his name is Darkman. Sensational. Stop digging, you struck gold. Darkman. Act 2 is all about assassinating Nazis and figuring out what these fellas are up to. Turns out, occult stuff. There is some historical evidence that actual Nazis were into supernatural gewgaws, but the extent of its pervasiveness is subject to debate. The Nazis in BloodRayne need the body of a dead ancient evil guy to make the ancient evil guy alive again. You know the drill. Oh, these Nazis. Due to the button-pressing madcap action of our favorite electronic hobby, most video games contain enemies, targets, or opponents. When crafting these baddies, video game developers sometimes draw from the well of pre-established fictional nasties, orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, and boglins, to name a few. How goombish will this goblin be? But then there are video games steeped not in fantasy but in history, and who better to be the stock villains of a video game set in the past than the most universally despised historical political party and army of all time, the Nazi Party. Nobody wants to wage war on the Whig Party, so it's Nazis all the way down. Most Nazis in video games are set in or around the Second World War. If your patriotism swells in your heart and you feel the call of duty, you can always play Medal of Honor. And if you want to earn a Medal of Honor, you can always play Battlefield. If you prefer to lay waste to modern-day Nazis, video games have you covered there as well. For example, in Bionic Commando, Super Joe is tasked with preventing the resurrection of Adolf Hitler. Oh, that Hitler, always dramatically re-emerging from the shadows. I am Adolf Hitler! If you want to complete the hat trick and decimate Nazis in the future, Metro 2033 is your huckleberry. If you've been letting Metro waste away in your unplayed section of your Steam library, you only have a few more years before 2033 is the old future. If that's not enough, you can always transform a game without Nazis into a game replete with history's biggest losers. WADs, mods, you name it. The only circumstance in which you cannot kill Nazis in a video game is when Albert Einstein wipes them out of existence in the opening cutscene. There exists enormous opportunities to squish and explode the most common and unambiguous bad guys. Nazis are everywhere. In video games. Thus, there are endless opportunities to kill Nazis. In video games. It's extremely fun and always morally correct to kill Nazis. Everything that Rayne utters throughout the entire game fits like a square peg in a round hole. It does not connect well.
Back to sleep for you. Did you eat something that isn't agreeing with your tummy?
For a moment, I thought the developer might be one of those Eurojank devs, earning some respectability and some forgiveness for the language barrier, but nope, these dudes are from Texas. Rayne spouts incidental monologues after killing Nazis, like the party banter in Baldur's Gate 3, only it's all cliched bad girl, tough girl, vampire girl one-liners.
You must be the mysterious commando. I'm sorry, was I talking too fast? Can't keep the words apart? I'll talk slower. Read my lips. You're dead.
I don't know how to feel about this. On one hand, I wish he had more of these so they wouldn't repeat over and over again during every stage of the game. But on the other hand, if this is what the writer thought were his best lines, I would hate to find out what got left on the cutting room floor. The dialogue is broken up by the music, but only kind of. Seriously, halfway through the game I had to double check and then triple check to see if I had accidentally turned off the music or lowered the music. Sometimes I do that if I'm recording footage and need clean audio. But nah, BloodRayne is so somber, so melancholy that music would invite too much emotion to the proceedings and just barely exists in the game. There is music. The game has a soundtrack with some techno club music, but it only sparingly rises to the eardrums over the course of the game. There is something resembling ambient mood tracks that switch to something marginally more exciting when a boss emerges or a cutscene plays, but these are few and far between. Maybe I was just doing something wrong. BloodRayne has this unceasing emptiness in its core and whatever is surrounding its core, and its skin. I did not intend for this video to be some kind of "I don't like this video game" rant, I swear. I just wanted to play a game about devouring Nazis. It was wholesome. It was a beautiful wish that was answered by a vindictive genie or a monkey's paw. The graphics in BloodRayne have that 2002 sharpness. If these graphics were a coffee table, they would be a baby hazard. It's forgivable, of course, because we all remember that there was a nationwide polygon shortage right after 9/11. Characters move about as if they are not part of the environment, like playing with a She-Ra action figure in a Lego set. Environments are destructible, but not in such a way that feels organic. Walls, vases, and furniture are not carefully physicked out. It's more like they have routine singular death animations like monsters in Doom. The enemy design lacks flavor and diversity. In Act 1, Rayne lays waste to these mutated insects and nests. In Act 2, these enemies are fully replaced with Nazis and these worm creatures. In Act 3, it's more and more Nazis, and a few vampires. I will give it up for the jetpack Nazi though, I only wish there were more of them. Look, there is nothing wrong with a game that delivers on its promise of slaughtering Nazis, but these creeps have little in the way of variation. Maybe the limited character designs metatextually make sense when one considers the homogeneity of Nazi Germany, but it mostly makes for repetition and boredom. A video game introducing us to new dangers and new baddies is a sure way to maintain the momentum and keep things interesting. As Mario traverses any game, new turtles and hazards are welcomed by the player. As Sonic the Hedgehog switches stages, new robots collide with the blue blur. Think about the monsters in Doom and how seeing a new unholy demon for the first time felt, and how these introductions were neatly scattered throughout the maps with a power progression of new challenges. BloodRayne does not have that. BloodRayne says, here's the same insect model and the same Nazi model. Have at it, which interferes with that good stress of turning a corner and finding a new horror to contend with. Speaking of repetition, the environments are tedious. Act 1 is set in a bog, and so Rayne bogs around looking for bog nests. The 3 shacks that Rayne needs to investigate are virtually identical. The chase portion that lasts a solid 2 minutes gives the player a view of more of the bog, suggesting a larger world, but we can't look into this because Rayne needs to keep up with the insect. Act 2 is a cold, sterile factory full of Nazis. Long hallways, stairs, scaffolds. Imagine a warehouse, and then try to imagine having a good time in one. You can't, right? Well, that's the big meaty middle of BloodRayne. Act 3 is a castle full of Nazis, which sounds amazing until you actually guide Rayne through the uninspired level design. It's so barren, lifeless, and worst of all, samey. Act 2 and Act 3 of BloodRayne remind me of Wolfenstein 3D and Return to Castle Wolfenstein, respectively. Wolfenstein 3D does not reward the player with new worlds to conquer after each map. The blue and teal aesthetic continues ad nauseum with precious few iterations. I tried playing Wolfenstein 3D for the first time only a few weeks ago, and may I just say, there is a reason why this game is talked about as an important historical relic and not as a great game. Conversely, Return to Castle Wolfenstein is a fantastic experience. My Allied Power avatar cannot take a hail of bullets or a rocket launcher to the face as seen in so many other first-person shooters, forcing me into escape mode, rather than spray and pray. Everything about Return to Castle Wolfenstein is designed to make me feel like I'm there and trapped, and the only way out is careful maneuvering and Nazi headshots. The castle in Act 3 of BloodRayne is, for lack of a more forgiving description, obnoxious. Everything looks too samey, and that's not what you want from an environment that requires you to jump through and around it in search of boss Nazis to assassinate. Look, I've always felt this way. If half of the challenge of a video game amounts to answering the question, where am I supposed to go now? Then the challenge is generally unfun and unsatisfying once solved. If you finish a stage in a game and shout, yes, then you know you have been given a good stage. But if you finish a stage by groaning in unimpressed relief, then you've got BloodRayne. Let's face it, BloodRayne is not known for its graphics, but it is known for its aesthetic, the bounced boobily aesthetic. Rayne is bound tightly into this leather prison. When the game's camera swirls around, it does so with a purpose, and that purpose is leering. Rayne isn't the only character who gets the pervert through the peephole treatment. Mince jiggles around for our alleged enjoyment, and we can almost look up her outfit at one point. Rayne also meets up with this Elsa She-Wolf of the SS type. And what do you know, she breasts boobily as well. I'm not a prude and don't mind horniness in my games and other media, but this is deeply unsexy, and I can't imagine who it appeals to. I don't need my video game characters to be attractive, let's be clear about that, but these developers clearly thought that these characters were the hotness, somehow. And the graphics are too painful and dirty for the characters to be bankable, wankable avatars. Am I supposed to gaze upon the glory that is mince and be like, hubba hubba, hummina hummina, ow wow, like what? The developers put so much stock in the game being hot that when it came out lukewarm, they didn't have much else to present to the player. BloodRayne being sexy was a big part of the marketing. This is the commercial, for real.
Driven by pure lust. Frighteningly beautiful. Men drop at her feet. Turned on. Or scared off. BloodRayne, rated M for mature.
The biomass nests look like vaginas drawn by someone who is afraid of vaginas, and the worm creatures look like sperm drawn by someone who hates sperm. This is a filthy game developed for freshmen in high school in 2002 who might get a cheap thrill out of a game that their parents would not approve of. You know those commercials from the 90s where the adult is like, "You can't do that," and then the young boy character looks directly into the camera and is like, "I don't think so," followed by a guitar riff, but the thing he's not actually allowed to do is, eat a breakfast cereal. Well, BloodRayne is that, the game. I feel bad for goth kids from this era because this feels like a game for them, but I suspect goth kids had more discerning taste. I will say one unambiguously positive thing about the aesthetic of BloodRayne. Those body chunks, immaculate, perfect. As good as you're gonna get in 2002. Most historical Nazis were killed by bullets from Soviet guns, or a hangman's noose. But these Nazis are made up of chunks that simply cannot be held together by their strict, hierarchical social castes and blind, unwavering hate. For the most part, I was disappointed by BloodRayne. The gameplay and environments are a slog, the music is basically nothing, and the graphics are lackluster even in the remastered PC port. I want to be charmed by the bad dialogue, I really do. Don't we all love a goofy video game dialogue meme? But everything Rain says feels like a chainsaw to a chalkboard. There is probably a good reason why this intellectual property hasn't been fully revived even in the era of revisiting everything and anything from the glory days of the PS2. Okay, just to dodge any accusations of hating, I will say two good things about BloodRayne. First, love those chunks. And second, my dissatisfaction with BloodRayne led me to The Saboteur, which is so good. Oh my god, this looks, sounds, and feels amazing. I would say more, but I am 99% sure that I will be making another Nazi killing video in the future centered around this tremendous game. It won't be next, but it will be soon. As always, death to fascism.